We'll move on now to the fall community conversation updates, and I believe Dr. Swift will be presenting.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the board and those who are joining us in person and remotely this evening. It is really a great time in the Lawrence Public Schools as we come to a point that we've been looking forward to for months, and that is the time when we would be able to put together the many, many thoughts that have been shared with us since early September. We've been out, and it's really very gratifying to bring this together into a report, members to share with you all, and then it is also being distributed to every member of our school community this evening as well. Our deepest gratitude to everyone. We have seen students and parents and families, teachers and staff, school and district leaders, team members from all over the organization sit in meetings. In addition, key to this endeavor are the many individuals who joined us from nonprofit and business and corporate and higher ed and community members who participated in a wide array of group meetings and group conversations within the groups in which they lead in the community. We heard it all, I believe. Widely varied perspectives and experiences of individuals are reflected in this effort. We heard from 50-plus year Lawrence residents right alongside one night. Members will recall, some of you were there, families who just joined us the previous weekend. So they were brand new. One family brand new to our country, another family brand new to Lawrence. We heard from current and former staff from a continuum of decades. And it was really gratifying also to see parents of our youngest students, preschoolers. So the investment of time that folks have given to share their thoughts about our schools is a strong indicator. First of all, it's a precious thing that we don't take for granted ever, is that folks will come to a room and share what they think is best for our children. We also see it as an indicator of community vibrancy and engagement in our schools. I want to give a shout out to our principals and our school leaders and our team leaders who also convened meetings. So departments and schools all have had meetings additionally, and that data is a part of this data set. So it adds depth and weight to the work. So thanks to everyone who contributed. The strength of a report lies in a vast amount of data. When I spoke, Ms. Craig Hare and I spoke to the researchers at University of Kansas who helped us. That was one of the highlights that they pointed out very early on in our conversation is the sheer data set. Thousands of individuals sharing tens of thousands of ideas, and all of that put together really to see what is the collective patterns and themes that emerge from all of the data. I will also share that the timing of this report is critical as well. Following several difficult years, not only in Lawrence, but in many districts across the country, excuse me. I'm going to have to have some. I'm perfectly healthy, so don't worry about that. Thank you for your patience. A strength of a report is in the vast amount of data, and as we said, the KU folks commented on what a gold mine this data set is for our organization. Finally, the timing of the report following so many difficult situations that really public organizations have gone through the past 5 years especially. This timing, it's just a great time to hear from folks and to use that information to turn the page and move forward. So let's dive in and see what the data tells us. Our intention was to engage with students, staff, families, and community members to better understand our collective hopes and challenges and really next steps for the future of the district. We asked 3 questions. You know them by now. You've heard them throughout the fall. What are we doing well? Where are our opportunities for improvement? And what do you see as the top priorities? We moved through the fall then working in a variety of formats. First, the online written survey, right at 1,200 responses to that particular bucket of the data. Secondly, as we mentioned, face-to-face team, school-based, and department meetings all across the organization. And thirdly, thoughts and ideas that were shared at in-person, district-convened community conversations, and then also in a number of community groups where we went to them, to their group, to collect data from their thoughts and ideas. There's a few artifacts and photos as we were out and about. And the invitation, just part of our record keeping. And then just a list of highlighted locations where we hung out through the fall, organizations that we connected with. And I want to be very clear as we share with the community, with the board, and with the community this evening. There are some strengths, and then there are a few areas of awareness that I want to just highlight before we review the themes. First of all, as we've shared, this is a vast amount of data. That is a strength. It reflects the perceptions and the experiences of individuals who give their lives, attend school, give their livelihoods to the district from our communities all across the spectrum. Secondly, a strength in this report is, I worried members that there might not be congruence of themes, that perhaps one group would feel one way and another group would feel completely differently. I've seen that happen in communities before. This data resonated to 5 distinct themes and patterns, regardless of the group or the timing of it. It really came down to the same themes and patterns all across the endeavor. Thirdly, as we said, the timing of the report is key and critical. Beginning new year 2025, it's just a beautiful time to pivot and move forward together. This report provides that North Star direction. It comes directly from the thinking and the ideas and the experience of our stakeholders. So we're delighted really with these strengths. There are some areas, and have done a lot of reflecting over this data. There are some areas I want to point out just to be aware of. They're not negatives at all, just part of what we take into consideration. There's that idea that perception, and you know the phrase, perception is reality, and it can be. But always when we ask folks how they feel or what they think, there's that interplay of collecting experience data, that perhaps some of what folks remember or think may not be correct at this current time. Maybe it's from an experience a while back, or for whatever reason, there's this tension between perception and fact. And I just want to acknowledge that and name it. And I also want to share that every organization rises and falls along the fault lines of perception. And I think it's important as we share this report and share the key patterns reflected, that as a community, we receive the perceptions of our stakeholders and recognize that regardless of anything else, this is a time to simply receive what folks are sharing, knowing that these were the resonant patterns in the data. We do understand that following the challenges and difficulties of recent years moving forward, we can see in this data direction and taking steps, and I can already see the members, to build in frequent and transparent reporting. There's nothing about what I'm saying here that's any critical reflection on any other time, but I see in the report our direction, frequent and transparent reporting. Members, you've called for some things this evening. That kind of thing is healthy and important, and this report really is a great time to make an adjustment in how often and consistently internal and external communication, and particularly what we've done all fall that I think is magical, is that two-way interaction between our stakeholders and our district. And I know that members are out all the time in the community. I'm really referring to a more concentrated effort at the organizational level to ensure that family and community engagement is our regular rhythm moving forward. The value of it is extraordinary. I will also point out that I've reflected on how important it may be in this process of rebuilding relationship and trust and consistency and communication from the district. It may be appropriate at times to use outside confirmation of data. The example of our KU team that analyzed and processed this massive amount of data, that's one great example. I want to give a shout out to that team and point out that they did that at no cost to the district. It was a labor of love on their behalf. A second example, Dr. Engelbrick was just sharing the boundary update. And that's another perfect example of where we used some expert help to ensure that we were documenting and offering that double check. I call it showing our work. And that's an important component, I believe, moving forward. Let's move into the key patterns now. There are 5. Now, members, you have a 25-page report that shares the detail of each of the groups and the themes as they emerge from each of those groups. What I'll be sharing this evening, just to really synthesize what we've looked at, are the 5 key themes and patterns that emerged across all of the groups. So we'll call these the super themes, and they've resonated across all of our groups in this data. First one, quality teachers and staff. We really heard throughout the conversations an appreciation and a value for teachers and staff, really as our claim to fame in Lawrence Public Schools, that this is the thing that makes us better, and best. We also heard repeatedly, it resonated, the importance of teacher and staff retention. Board members, you've been on this as a theme every day that I've known you, but I just want you to know it bears out in the data. And not only recruiting and retaining, increasing salaries, being competitive, but also ensuring that there's a strong system of support. In many of our conversations that came out right alongside those more obvious things of salaries and benefits, that kind of thing. Finally, really pointed to, across several batches of the data, monitoring class sizes and making sure that resource allocation, getting as many and as much of our funds directly into the classroom, that indeed is an important priority. Second key theme and pattern, commitment to academic excellence, a value for programs, and a desire for enhanced program offerings. So if I were to have this theme on a bumper sticker from reading and rereading our data, it really is about academic achievement and opportunities for students to be engaged in really awesome programming. And you would think of this perhaps at the high school mostly, but I want you to know we heard it preschool all the way through. Really that idea of access and opportunities for enriched learning, for advanced learning, for offering a wider menu of rigorous, rich academic program opportunities. And Dr. Engelbrich mentioned, and the board members have called, really that perhaps opening up our transfer policy. The data really aligns with that because our parents and our students have shared with us they know what fits them and they want to choose accordingly. And on that note, I'm really referencing the high school level was the most commonplace we heard that. We heard a lot of shout outs for many programs, and I'm sorry that this only mentions 4, but the data analysis really used the data to pick those. We heard about many programs, but at the top of the list, AVID, arts, music and performing arts, and environmental science were mentioned. When I heard parents speak to academic excellence, there are several patterns that run inside of that. One is mentioned here, that idea of opportunities for advanced learning, but we also sense in the community members this concern. Depending on the age of the child, when the COVID closures hit, their family, parents are concerned about fundamental skills. So we hear a lot, and particularly the science, of reading, structured literacy, just making sure that we have our fundamentals in process, as well as those many program opportunities that are so exciting. Third theme. This one, and by the way, these are not in any order. 5 prevailing themes throughout the data, not in any particular order. Prioritizing safety, and I know this is not a surprise to all of us who are in and around schools every day, but just really safety concerns, whether that is being shared by a staff member or by students or by a parent, they resonated pretty clearly along concerns with bullying, with some violent behavior, and also this secondary idea of increasing our level of consistency with enforcement and discipline policies. I will share with you members that same theme I heard from our administrators when I met with them back in September and October. Just really, there's a hunger across the organization to align and clarify and ensure that we have a full continuum and process in place, and that process is consistent and reliable. We know each situation is unique, but we also know how important it is that our schools have consistency and that it not be one way in one school and a different way in another school. I do want to give a shout out to all of our principals, our SROs, and our directors, Roberson and Irvin, who've been working throughout this fall to really get us better aligned, and Dr. Engelbricht's been on that work as well. Another key theme and pattern, I'm so relieved and proud to see this pattern in the data. It resonated strongly, and that value for equity, inclusion, and belonging. People used those words in the conversations we were in, particularly pointing at this time to students, LGBTQ plus students, neurodiverse learners, and other marginalized students were called out specifically for our wraparound efforts to ensure belonging and inclusive practice. There was a secondary pattern, just wanting to ensure that we have consistent equity and inclusivity implementation across all the schools. I appreciate our equity advisory and look forward to working with that group more diligently as we work to ensure consistency in that practice. Last theme, and that is the imperative of transparency, communication, and engagement. This sounded a lot of different ways in the data, but it really was at its core, its fundamental core, I think, a desire to be able to see the work behind the work. And I'll share with you, members, that I've committed all around this community to work on our communication processes internally and externally, to do our best to provide clarity, to do those messages in a timely fashion. And I want to point out that this conversation, this thread in the data, was not just at the district level. We heard it in the school meetings also. So we will be talking more over the coming days, as you're aware, members, about particular tools that we can use to foster two-way communication, because I will share with you there is a hunger in this fast-paced world that we live in. If a parent has multiple students, there is a hunger to have clear, consistent, reliable communication that doesn't rely on having 12 different apps loaded on the parent's phone. So this consistent communication fell into a number of lanes, and we'll talk more about that over the coming weeks. I also was interested, members, you all have talked with me about this, but it was also in our public data, is explanations and clarity around policy and policy implementation in schools, and consistent engagement. I'm so delighted that we're progressing on our family engagement and equity position, and really that position in all of our jobs is about ensuring that we are connected to families, because we know our children can be no more successful than that quality connection with parents and the school and the district. So those are our 5 patterns, as I shared with you, members. I don't think there are any surprises there, but I hope that folks will recognize and value having them all together and seeing this as an emerging direction for the district. And certainly we are governed by a board whom I have the privilege to present to this evening. But this is what our community says, and I'm proud to say that it resonates with everything I know of this board. So as we wrap up tonight, we're thinking about next steps. We have our marching orders, we have our direction from the community, and we know that these themes matter. Investing in teachers and staff, ensuring safety, equity, inclusion, and belonging, strengthening our academic programs and opportunities, making sure that we take every step possible to direct that funding to opportunities for students and classrooms, improving transparency and collaboration, working alongside with the community, and finally, we can't do anything that our community has asked us to do without developing an intentional plan for long-term sustainability around the priorities. So members, I'll look forward to conversations with you all and sharing more. I believe we have ample evidence to update a strategic plan at the right time and in the right place, ensuring that we have short and long-term goals, and that with each of our goals, we have metrics that are aligned to the priorities. And it's with those kinds of supports that we can measure our relevance and our effectiveness, and we can see our progress along a clearly defined set of goals. We know if everything is the top priority, the reality is nothing is a priority. So I think this is a great time to really narrow in on a few systemic priorities for our organization and for our community. The path forward is rooted in opportunity, partnership, and accountability. So members, over the coming weeks of 2025, we will take steps to act in response to the focus areas. I will point out that several steps we've taken over recent months have been aligned to what we were hearing. The cell phone policy really was the top request among parents. It resonated throughout the data. So collaboration, innovation, and diligence, a disciplined focus on these areas will be required to meet the challenges that we face as a school district, as an organization. I think in doing so, in showing the work from my team to the community with the board's support, we can meet the challenges we face, and we can make progress to achieve the priorities articulated here. I want to reassure the community that once we have this conversation with the board, we'll be back out in the spring to check in on our progress along these priorities and goals. I'm so proud to live in a community that cares enough about their children to respond and speak to what they want to see for our children, our young people, and our high-quality public schools. This report is proof that in Lawrence, the center still holds, and that center is the heart for every child in our community. I'm so honored and delighted to share that that's what I see in this data. Our children remain our priority, and we are so privileged to live in a community that cares for its students. And I want to thank everyone who's been a part of this effort for all the support to continue to serve our students well. So I thank you for the opportunity, and I'll be happy to make notes through your discussion or to take questions. I do want to give a shout out to several members, all the members of the team who really drove the load of this work. And then I got the privilege to put together some thoughts to share with you this evening. They are sitting back over here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Swift, and to your team, and to the KU folks that volunteered their time to help. Many are grateful for their assistance sorting through the data. So I'll open it up for questions.
I just have a quick comment. I just want to say thank you to you, KU, the team, for the work. I think you've laid a really great foundation of taking the data, all those comments. I think it's really great that you've organized it and really laid, as you said there at the end, really laid a great foundation when we're ready for the next strategic plan, that we've got the framework, we've got the vision, we know what the community wants from us, and we can organize it, take that vision, take those categories and really lay that framework with what the community is asking us to do, and in some ways had already started some of that work. And so it's nice to get the feedback and to see it laid out with this great foundation. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
And I would concur with GR. I really think, having done strategic plans, when I was sitting here listening, my thing was, well, this is how you start a good strategic plan. We went to the community, got their desires, and now it's time for action. And I'm hoping that we can get things moving. I know we've done some things, you've done some things recently to align, and I look forward to more.
I'm very excited about the work that you have put together, and it's really good to see that there is coherence in the feedback. I'm not surprised by the things that our community has highlighted, but I am pleased that it has all come together in a way that is very powerful and easy to communicate back to our families and everyone who participated in this process. I too agree that this is the foundation of the strategic planning process. One of the things that we have done in our agenda as a board since we adopted our first strategic plan 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
I think it's longer than that.
6 years now.
So 7, I think.
Was to note in each agenda item which strand of our strategic plan a particular board report or decision aligns with. And I might suggest to board leadership that as we're moving through this kind of transitional period, that maybe we consider adding these categories of alignment to the feedback that we've received until we kind of finalize that next version of the strategic plan. I think that might be a way to further signal to the community. So, for example, I know we are talking about some things in the communications area that we've heard the feedback, and we are taking it seriously and acting upon it. So thank you for this work. It's excellent, and I'm very pleased.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Carol. I just wanted to thank you for your committed service to this community, and I especially want to thank you and the folks at the Lawrence Public Library who opened their doors for a brown bag lunch to those folks who gave up their day to come out and share their opinions and their thoughts and voices. So I echo my colleagues' sentiments that this is a great stepping stone, coming out of the pandemic. We can, dust ourselves off and see where we need to go. And like you said, you have our marching orders. So thank you.
I like the sentiment, but what my board members have already said, there's no need to repeat everything. But I was a part of some of the community engagements, and so I really enjoyed seeing how all that information was put into a PowerPoint so we can see it. I definitely influenced my daughters to put their input in as well for my grandkids so that, they can also be a part of helping build a stronger future for their kids as well.
And, I just want to make sure you're included. Do you have questions or comments?
Just echoing everyone else's sentiment. Thank you to Dr. Swift and her team for putting this together, and thank you for all the members of the public who took time out of their schedules to come and give this important feedback.
Thank you.
I have a question. So one thing that occurred to me sitting here, and as we begin we'll take the themes, and that will help drive the strategic planning and maybe some action steps that follow. And it occurred to me, if I was a parent considering maybe some uniqueness of my circumstance that might not, if you're unsure whether or not it's going to bubble up into these spaces. So, for example, if I was a special education parent and that word didn't come up this evening, or I'm interested in. It's not just a space that we didn't necessarily hear explicitly written out. Can you talk about
Yes.
the subtext of all of these things and how we will utilize them in different spaces and with different groups?
I really appreciate that question, President Jones. It's actually one I reflected on this weekend as we were pulling together the last details. We heard about student need in that bucket of data around strengthening academic programs. And probably, in my way of thinking, a better way to label that, academic programs and student supports. That's how I heard it. It didn't come out on the analysis specifically that way, but we heard around social emotional learning, parents of special education students, and we had a few meetings focused particularly for parents of students with special needs, 504. We heard from advocates for students with second language and want to do more in that area to hear those voices. But the area of supporting our students so that they have full access and opportunities, it's very clearly there. And I'm taking a note that it would be good to enhance our summary so that we just acknowledge that.
And I can see that in each of these themes, there'll be intersection as well.
Yes.
None of these buckets will live on their own. There'll be implicit and explicit things that intersect in all of these spaces.
Yes.
So, okay, I really am grateful for the work that you all have done, and I'm looking forward to the next iteration of a strategic plan for the district so that it can help the board drive, our decision-making around budgets and around policy and governance areas that we get to partake in, and appreciate what you've done to help us also stay focused on what the community is asking for. Thank you.
Thank you so much.